Few things in this world are inevitable. Death and Ubisoft making a sequel or something. When it came to Assassin's Creed 2, I was highly anticipating it after the completion of Assassin's Creed 1 back in 2007. Unbeknownst to myself and basically everyone else at the time though, Assassin's Creed 2 wasn't going to follow Altair from the previous games. It was going to follow this new young Italian lad named Ezio. Desmond still being the prime focus of one story did give this game a little bit of continuity, and that's lasted for the most part. But how does the sequel stack to the original? Let's find out. So let's talk about specs, because that's tradition here, and once again the Overkill PC just happens to dwarf the specifications asked by Ubisoft. When you're playing an 11-year-old game, that tends to happen. So Ubisoft decided to ask for a 2.6 GHz Intel Core Duo E6700 or an AMD Athlon 64 2X 6000 or greater. The GPU was a 512MB DirectX 9.0 C compliant card with shader model 3.0 or better, and 4GB of RAM. Quickly for reference, I didn't realise this game was on Steam, and I didn't realise it had those specs there, and I kind of went to Ubisoft, who gave me the specs from their old legacy website, so sorry. So once again we're back with that 2.6 GHz CPU, but that graphics card is really vague because that encompasses a huge amount of graphics cards. So I've done like a shredded digging and I found that the following graphics cards would be perfect fits for the minimum specifications of this game to compare. This comes courtesy of GameDebate.com. They are an AMD Radeon HD 3870 or a GeForce 8800 GT. And then there's my system with a 7700K Nvidia GTX 1080 and 32GB of RAM. So what does this mean for the performance? Well, this game manages to perform like a man swimming in custard. I had the settings cranked up to the max initially, and I could not achieve 60 FPS. Fuck, I struggled to reach 60 FPS in some cases. Now, I'm yet to run this game sans stream. When I'm streaming, it does lock the FPS to 60. We'll go over how I do that at another point. But I have been enjoying it, and I don't notice it when I'm playing as much. Now, I do struggle to see why this game struggles. It could be that it's poorly optimised, there is the possibility that it's also my system, but frankly, it's playable and it's watchable, and that's all we care about. I did make the active choice to play the original Assassin's Creed 2 as opposed to the Assassin's Creed Ezio collection, which is sort of remastered, I believe. Granted, it's a more vibrant and updated version, but some of the animations and faces are just nightmare fuel. Regardless, I'm at the point in the game where I just need to grit my teeth and get through it. I'm too far in to go ahead and just start a new game like that. So, given the drops to 40 FPS don't last long, and I rarely use the map, which is somehow capped to 30 FPS, well, the performance is way below optimal, but far above unplayable, and that's really all that matters. So the story of Assassin's Creed 2 picks up where Assassin's Creed 1 left off. It is left ambiguous though as to how much time truly has elapsed. It could be anywhere between half an hour to maybe about a day's tops, but this is kind of where the two-tailed story immediately comes into play. So let's start off, like the game, with Desmond. So after the events of Assassin's Creed, Desmond, who's now in his prison, just starts seeing shit on his wall. Greek, Arabic, Hebrew, Chinese, Japanese, writing all over the wall at the back of his bed, and giving it a little examine for an unknown amount of time, Lucy, the scientist who helps him with the Animus and some of the stuff in the first game, rushes in, a little bit of blood on her, rushes Desmond out of the room. In the previous game, she did show her alliance to the Brotherhood, and she does orchestrate this prison break of sorts. And Desmond takes a small trip into the Animus whilst Lucy downloads some data, and here we get to witness the birth of Ezio Auditore de Firenze, or Ezio Auditore of Florence. Soon after, Desmond is taken to this warehouse where the current group of assassins reside. He gets to meet Sean Hastings, Rebecca Crane, and the Animus 2.0. Now, Lucy plans to teach Desmond all the techniques and skills of Ezio in a fraction of the time using this new Animus. Along the way, Desmond will learn of a mysterious Subject 16, a man who was kept in the Animus for so long that it drove him to insanity and he ultimately ended up taking his life. Subject 16 has left some remnants of his exploits and some glyphs in the city, and using these glyphs to unlock little segments of a video called Truth are definitely worth finding, as it's one of the few things in further on Assassin's Creed games that do crop up. If you thought Desmond had it rough, wait till you meet Ezio, a young upper middle class 20-year-old something in Renaissance Italy. After a little fight in the streets with a rival family, Ezio runs some errands for his mother and father. In doing so, he meets a young Leonardo da Vinci, and he becomes a really good friend of the family, or what's left of it. Now, his father's embroiled in a sort of legal case against the Pazzi family, and in this really sick twisted turn of events, the man that helps Ezio's father betrays the Auditore family and publicly executes Ezio's father, his older brother, and his fucking 12-year-old brother. What the fuck did the 12-year-old do? Ezio soon finds out his father was a member of the Assassin's Brotherhood and vows revenge upon the men responsible for killing his family. Ezio's mother and his sister all leave the town for the country, where they meet Ezio's uncle Mario. Yes, Ubisoft made the joke. We soon learn of the Auditore family's legacy as an assassin, and Ezio, along with his uncle and a few connections, learn of a plot that runs deep in the heart of Italy. The Borgia family from Spain, who are Templars, wish to seat a person in every prominent position of power in Italy. This includes the Holy Throne. They want a pope. The Templars will stop at nothing to absolutely achieve this goal, and they will kill anyone who opposes this rule. As such, Ezio travels throughout Italy to recruit all of his allies to try and stop this threat from arising. It's a tough job for someone, even when they're not initiated into the Brotherhood. And it also takes around 20 fucking years.
Silenzio! 22 years ago, I stood where I stand now, and watched my loved ones die.
Now that's fucking dedication. Now, of course, all your favourite magical MacGuffins come back, like the Apple of Eden and such, but let's be honest here, that's the MacGuffin, everybody just cares about the Assassin's part. MacGuffin comes second to the actual stabby, killy part. We all know this, it's an Assassin's Creed game. I mean, can anybody actually tell me where the magical MacGuffins are right now? Because every game seems to have one, and well, they're fucking somewhere. Now, real talk, this has been one of the most ambitious stories for the Assassin's Creed franchise. It isn't just a little bit of history that can be toyed with here. This is the Italian Renaissance, one of the most documented times in history due to the cultural and significant scientific achievements made in that time. This is where Ubisoft definitely took some liberties with the story. I mean, you assassinate a pope. A pope who, canonically, IRL dies in his bed of being sick. This is the game where Assassin's Creed completely sidesteps all historical boundaries and settings. It just forges a new history in its place of whatever we know. Now, I do want to say this does come from a place of unintentional ignorance, because unfortunately the Crusades are not something I was ever versed in, and as such the historical boundaries being pushed in Assassin's Creed 1 are unknown to myself. Catholic schools kind of do this thing where they tend to teach you the good parts of Christianity and gleefully omit the darker sides and just act like they never happened. I guess some things don't change. Overall though, I did enjoy the Assassin's Creed 2 story, and I've managed to race through it without even realising this, and as I write the review here, I'm about 75% through the game, and I've been able to fill the rest in with memory because there's a few major plot points that you need to hit, and everything else is kind of filler that gets you from there to there, but the major plot points are the good bits. The reason I can actually do this so well is because it is a well executed story. You won't find many games out there with a story that is so memorable that you can recount most of it from 5 minutes of playing. I can't even do that with Assassin's Creed 3, or 1, or Brotherhood, or Revelations, or Unity, or Origins, or Valhalla. You can really only do it with Syndicate and 2. Fortunately, Assassin's Creed 2 suffers from a disease we call same shit, different day. Despite the 2-year gap between games, almost everything remained the same. There were a few little improvements to combat, with the introduction of poison, dual hidden blades, and even the health bars above the enemies, but these all came with no drawbacks. The combat was made more fluid, and you could even fight with the hidden blade, which really did make it quite fun. The free running mechanics as well, that was an absolutely amazing upgrade. This may be a stylistic choice due to how the buildings in Europe are different from the buildings in the Middle East, or a development choice as Ezio would technically be younger than Altair, but free running was made faster and easier. Ezio can scale taller buildings faster and jump between the rooftops with ease. Even the streets in the game are littered with little ramp ups onto the roofs just to make it more fluid and get you on the roofs as much as possible. Atop this, we do also have some armour that can be purchased and broken, as well as weapons that can be purchased and upgraded. You can upgrade Ezio at your own pace and find the best weapons in the game. If you still don't have enough ways to spend your money, there's even the option to change the colours of your outfit, and you can even upgrade your uncle's town with money to make more money, to spend that money to make more money. Everything's gonna just be made easier and faster. Even fast travel's been put into this thing. It does cost 100 florins, but it's still there. And yes, it only takes you from city to city. But what do you pick? A load screen or horseback? These are some amazing quality of life updates, and most are still found in the franchise to date, which is good. In quite literally all of my haste, as I have been editing this, I've noticed that right here, I forgot the scores. But literally at the end, and I forgot to fucking score it. Fuck. Story 8, gameplay 9, performance 6, overall 7.6 out of 10. By and large, the story is great, and I'd happily have rated it higher were it not for the inclusions of Brotherhood and Revelations continuing the story. The game's ending leaves it that we can get more of Ezio, but the thing is, due to that, it means the story's incomplete. Now, I do understand some reasoning behind this. Imagine how long it would take to create a game that is technically 3 games. That's going to be 3 discs long. Now, the PlayStation, that would have no issues. Blu-ray discs are 25 gigabytes on a single layer, but the Xbox 360? Well, it'd be another year before you could download discs to the console, so you'd essentially have 3 separate games anyway. Now, I have rated the performance low because of my issue that I was having. If it is an issue with the game, it's going to stay that way, but if it was my computer, I will amend this at some point. I'll come back to this and I'll just say, look, here's the crack, here's what it actually is. Really sorry, my computer was fucked. Until then, it is tolerable and it is playable, but kinda unacceptable. The gameplay is amazing, and my only gripe is that sometimes when you put in something, you do a little input, what does happen and what should happen deviate way too much for it to be accidental. The game does try to course correct you in regards to it. The thing is, when you have a choice between a ledge and certain fucking death, it should be pretty obvious which one I want. Right guys, that is it for me. You didn't need to like, you didn't need to comment, you didn't need to subscribe, you didn't need to go home, but you can't stay here. I'll catch you in a bit.